Hello, friends, and welcome to Into Fly Fishing. Today, we're going to talk about one of my favorite methods to fly fish for trout or other species during the spring runoff season. So let's get started. All right, everybody, thanks again for being here. I'm Nick Jovanovich, and this is Into Fly Fishing. I've been a professional guide in Southwest Montana for the last 15 years. I have also been fly fishing for myself for over 35 years now. And so I've had a lot of practice in a lot of different methods. So what is this method we're talking about? Well, it goes by many names. And the original name, as far as I know, is called the Teton rig. Maybe you've heard of it, maybe you haven't. It also goes by other names. I learned it while guiding in Southwest Montana in a specific river that's known for having a deep channel with a lot of fast water pushing right down the middle of the channel. We called it the pogo rig. It's also called pogo, pogoing, banging, you-bangy, you name it, there it is. That's what it's called. So what is this Teton, this pogo rig? Well, it's just a different setup. We're putting the weights on the bottom and we're tagging flies above the weights and using an indicator. And it's very effective for fishing springtime high water, right? We've got the weather's warming up, the snow's melting. We get spring rain, which it's going to rain here any moment. So let's get this thing done. But the river's going to swell up for most of us in the springtime. That can make fly fishing kind of difficult in a lot of situations. So this method is one of the most effective ways to fish high water. Not only that, but I use it in the winter time as well. It's very effective to fish that deeper, warmer water, even if it's moving slow. You just kind of adjust the weights, and we'll talk about that in a little while as well. Now, before we get into the content, if you could just take a second to like this video and follow this channel, we really, really appreciate it. It takes a lot of time, effort, and money to bring these to you. We love doing it. We want to keep doing it. And with your support, we definitely can. So let's talk a little bit about the setup. Because it's springtime, we're going to measure out a pretty good distance of leader and tippet material. And of course, you know, you've heard that standard 9-foot measurement up against your rod. If it's a really deep river, you might as well throw a little bit more. I like to go up to about 11, 12 maybe. Once you get past 12, it gets a little bit clumsy, but 9, 10, 11, 12, depending on how deep the water is. I like to start from the bottom and build up. That helps me get my distances correct, okay? And so on the very bottom here, I'm going to put a little overhand knot, and I'm going to clip one weight on. And this just kind of helps me keep things organized in my mind. Now, from that bottom weight, I'm going to cut a secondary piece of tippet material, and I'm going to hold it about, let's say 16-ish, maybe 18 inches up off of the weight. Now, I like to run it through my mouth to get it nice and slobbery, and I'll do a double surgeon's knot to tie it onto the running line, the existing leader. Now, we'll clip the back end, and now this step's really important here. We take this tag line, I'm going to run it around the existing leader, the running line, and make kind of a knot. Now, that's taking pressure off of the knot itself and putting it on the running line. And it also makes my tag stick 90 degrees off of the main running line / leader. Now, I'm going to repeat that process and measure another 16, 18 inches up from that bottom tag to put my top tag. Same thing. And if you don't like putting the weight on and having to pull the weight through these knots, you can do that later. It just helps me keep things organized in my mind. I can tell which one is my tag and which one's going to get the weight. And so it helps me do my double surgeons a little easier, wet it down, pull it down, and do that overhand knot, take the pressure off of the knot and put it on the running line and stick the line off 90 degrees. Now, there are different ways to do this with these tag lines. I can just take the running line and do that roll and put a little loop knot in there. So I have 2 loops on the running line. Now with my tags, I'll cut the tag, and on one end, I can do a perfection loop. And now I can just loop to loop connect the tags onto the main running line. And there you go. Now, the bobber in this situation, especially in high water, I'm going to put it just a few inches off of the floating line. And that gives me the most depth for effective fishing. Now, the flies I'm going to choose, I like to choose 2 different flies on this setup. The bigger fly, of course, works better on the bottom tag, the smaller fly on the top. So if I'm not sure if they're eating caddis or PMDs, I'll probably put one of each on there. Sometimes I'll start with a scud or a sow bug on the bottom and put a midge or something else on the top. If I know they're eating mayflies, but I'm not sure if they're eating nymphs or emergers, I'll probably put a nymph, a different nymph on the bottom, and then put the emerger in the upper pattern and fish it like so. So what we're essentially doing with this setup is intentionally overweighting the bottom, which is going to drag the bottom of the setup, which is going to drag the bottom of the river. And of course, the bobber then is going to be flowing downstream faster than our setup. So it'll be kind of like this. It'll be taut in between the bobber and the weights. And we'll increase or decrease the weight depending on our needs, depending on the depth. But what we're looking for here is if the flow of the river is going this way, our setup will look just like this. The weights will be dragging the bottom of the river behind the indicator, and the indicator will be up on top of the water, of course, and it's going to be doing this kind of a thing. Tick, 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 as this weight is going tick, 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 tick on the bottom of the river. Hence the term pogo or bang-in. Now, with this setup, we want the drift to be as such. We want enough weight on here to register the bottom and to allow everything to drift and this weight to go dang, 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 dang down the river. Now, if we're too light, the indicator isn't going to register. We're either too light with the weights or we're too short with our leader and tippet setup. On the reverse side, if we're hanging up all the time and our bobber's going under and we're hanging weeds and rocks and sticks with the weights, then we're too weighted. We got to get this weight ratio just right to where it's freely going and just ticking down the river. Tick, 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 tick. Now, how do you know it's a fish then if this bobber, this indicator is going like this all the time going down the river? Well, it's pretty rhythmic as it's going down the river. And when a fish grabs one of these flies, it's actually quite lively. The bobber, the indicator will dive and it's shake right away. You can kind of tell it's a real lively dive and shake. And if it just sort of slow leans under the water like that, oftentimes it means the weight is just hung up in some moss or on a rock or something like that. You can give it a little bit of a soft downstream set with the tip of your rod, not enough to pull this out of the water and recast, but enough to pull this weight up out of the bottom and get it unhooked so you can continue the drift. I call it a soft set. And also what happens if you do happen to have just a soft take, which will happen in the winter, when a fish just kind of lazily grabs this and the bobber just leans down a little bit. If you do that downstream soft set, well, you might actually hook a fish when you thought it was the just hung up on the bottom. Casting this in understanding the drift and how the indicator is supposed to be working for you, and if it's the bottom or a fish, it does take a little bit of getting used to, but I promise you it's a very effective method. All right, now let's talk about casting this setup. So remember, the heavy weights are on the very bottom. You cannot false cast this type of a setup. Your loops won't stay up above your head. They'll actually collapse down and hit you. It's painful, or you'll just make a mess with the wrapping crap all over the place, and it's ridiculous. So you have to use zero slack. There could be zero slack in your line, and you're just going to lift your rod tip up and plop downstream for your back cast and plop upstream. So let's drop the weights out and then throw down, plop. There's my back cast. Lift up high, tight on the line, plop. There's my forward cast, and that's it. It's that simple. Slack is your enemy here, though. But now we're mending, and I got a high stick method going here that works best with this. See how your indicator's going slow in, go to bend. That looked like a little slow on the bobber. I don't think that was a fish. Probably the bottom. It's usually a little more lively if it is a fish. But watch the indicator coming down, and you can see it's ticking. That's why we call it the pogo. It's tick, 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 ticking as it's coming down the river because the weight's registering the bottom, and we're mending, high sticking, and that's the same spot. So I'm guessing that we've got some rocks and cobble or another structure there. High tips, tight lines, and that's it. You can do a modified roll cast on this. Make sure you have no slack. You'll be real tight with the line, draw back in a big circle, and push firmly forward, but it is doable. And those are about the only two casts you want to use with this setup. All right, friends, I hope you like this video on the Teton, pogo, bangin', whatever you want to call it method. It's very effective for fishing high water in the spring and for slow, deep water fishing in the winter. You just have to adjust the weight a little bit. Now, I know what a lot of people say about this method. It's not really fly fishing. Okay, what is? You define. If you don't like it, don't use it. Wonderful. You can just come out here on the high water and you throw your single humpy and hope something happens. or you can do your inline method. Or if you want to try this, this will get your flies down deep and in an effective range and hold them there throughout the drift. So you have a better chance at finding fish in this high water situation. Thanks again for watching this video. Please like this video. Please subscribe. That helps us out big time. It takes a lot of time, effort, and yes, even a lot of money to bring these videos to you. We love doing it. We want to keep doing it. Once again, I'm Nick Jovanovich. This is Into Fly Fishing, and we'll see you back out on the water here next time. Take care.